everyone, this is Gina. Today I'm going to show you how to make this dazzling diamond bracelet. And these are the beads that are found in the treasure box. So this is the first treasure box tutorial. However, these beads are also available on my website if you did not get a treasure box, which a lot of you did not because I did not make nearly enough. This response was overwhelming and they were sold out within a couple of hours. And I promise next time I make a box, I will make more boxes, as much as I can do. Of course, I'm doing this all by myself. I'm putting it completely together. So it cannot be a huge amount, but I will make more next time. These beads, like I said, are on ggctreasures.com. You can also check budgetbeads.shop because Shirley will be getting some of these cuboid beads in. She has lots of rondelles also. So if my shop runs out or if you just don't like what I have, then you can go over to her shop too. The fact that I can put out a box and that I have a website has a lot to do with Shirley, so we want to show her some love. She was very supportive and very helpful, and without her I would have never started this endeavor. So let's show her some love and shop her site too. This is what the bracelet looks like on the wrist. I used 2 of these cuboid beads to make the clasping and then 15 O seed beads to go around it. I think in the tutorial I say 11 O's, but they are 15 O's, so keep that in mind. I will put in caption too to make sure that everyone knows that. But this is what it looks like on the wrist. It's really pretty, wears very well. I've had it on for a while. It doesn't fall off. However, of course, you can always change the clasping if you'd like. One other thing I want to mention is that all the tutorials for the treasure box will have a playlist in my playlists on this channel. So you can always find the tutorials. I am not going to post this as a treasure box tutorial because I have the other beads and I want other people to be able to make it too. However, I will put it in the playlist with all of the tutorials that I make for all of the treasure boxes along with the unboxings. So you can find that in the playlist very easily when you get your box and you want to make your tutorials. So anyway, let's go ahead and make this bracelet. I've also made some earrings to match it and I will post those briefly right after I post the bracelet. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, for this project, out of the treasure box, we are going to be using 3 bags of beads. We're going to be using the 4x3 Rondell Crystal, the dark blue, and we're going to be using 10 of them. We're going to be using the 8x6 Rondell Crystal with the light blue flash, and we are going to be using 5 of those. We're going to be using the cuboid or rectangular bead crystals, and we're going to be using 22 of them. We are also going to be using some 8O, some 11O, and some 15O seed beads. These are all Toho galvanized permanent finish aluminum. And I do have some of these in all 3 sizes on my website. If you need some, you can go there and get some. So then we're going to be using some Nanofil 10 pound. You can also use 8 pound. Now if you're going to use Fireline, make sure you stay with the 6 or even maybe a 4 pound. You want a very small diameter thread that's very strong for this. So Nanofil works perfectly. I'm also going to be using a size 12 beading needle. This is an English beading needle, and I'm going to put onto it to start my project a full wingspan of thread. A wingspan is when you spread your arms out from side to side and you measure from fingertip, length of first arm, across the chest, length of the second arm, to the fingertips on that arm. That's a wingspan. We'll start with that, and then we'll use several shorter lengths to make the other components. We're going to make this separate components and then connect them together. We will begin with the end with the clasping cubes here. So our first unit will be here, and then we'll just leave our long thread on that unit, make our other units with shorter thread, and then connect them all together with the long thread remaining on this unit. So let's go ahead, gather your things together and we'll get started. Okay, to begin this project, you're going to pick up a cube, an 11-0 seed bead, a cube, an 11-0 seed bead, a cube, an 11-0 seed bead, a cube, and one more 11-0. They're a little long for the needle here. So this is what you have. You're going to have 4 crystals with 11-0s in between. You're going to alternate them. You're going to start with the cube and end with an 11-0. Then you're going to bring it down to the end of your thread, and you should have a really long thread on for this particular component we're going to make. And once you've brought it to the end, you don't have to leave a long tail, but you need to leave enough to tie a knot here. So then hold on to your crystal and go back through the very first crystal you put on your thread. I'm holding on to my tail and the crystal, and I'm pulling my working thread until I get a square like this. Now I'm going to sew back through all of these beads. When I get back to where my tail and my working thread meet, we'll tie a knot right here. So just go ahead and begin. We're coming out of this crystal. We'll begin sewing through the 11-0, the cube, and the 11-0 behind that cube. And continue. Just make sure you don't miss any of your 11-0 seed beads. And then I'm going to come up through this 11-0 right here. Then I'm going to tie a knot. So you can see I'm coming out of the 11-0. My tail is coming out of this cube, my working thread out of the 11-0. I'm just going to tie a knot. Make sure it goes down between the 11-0 and the cube. Pull it very tightly. And just one more overhand knot. Making sure it goes down between the beads, does not block the beads, and pull it very tightly so that you have a real nice, firm little diamond shape here. Now I'm just going to tuck that tail out of my way, get you a little closer here. And you can see my thread is coming out of this cube. I want to sew through the next 11-0 and cube and exit the cube right here. Don't go through the 11-0 behind it. And just pull your thread through. And you have a lot of thread, so just pull it through gently. And then let's pick up 3 11-0 seed beads. So pick up 1, 2, 3. There we have it. Oh, I thought I lost him. 3 11-0s. I'm coming out of this cube. I'm going to skip over the top of the 11-0 and go into the next cube. Now, just kind of move your 11-0 out of the way on both sides. Just like this. And then pull your thread through. And they should land right on top of that 11-0 and just kind of make a little bridge over the top of it, just like this. Then we're going to do the same thing over each of the next 11-0s. So pick up 11-0 seed beads onto your needle, 3 11-0s, and go into the next cube, skipping over the 11-0. And then on the other side, just move things around so you can get your needle out without going into that 11-0. Pick up 3 11-0 seed beads again and do the same thing. Go into the cube. Like I said, sometimes you have to move that little 11-0 around so you can get into it. This is a very simple design, though it may look complicated. When it's finished, it's really simple, so you should have no problem with it. I'm going to cut down this tail string now. Okay, now that we have cut off our thread, we're coming out of this cube right here. We're going to pick up a different series of beads this time. So what we are going to do is we're going to pick up 2 11-0 seed beads, and then we're going to pick up an 8-0. And then we're going to pick up a 15-0, a cube, two 15-0s, a cube, and a 15-0. And I will show you this. So you'll have two 11-0s, an 8-0, and 11-0, a cube, two 15-0s, a cube, and a 15-0. Then what we are going to do is we're going to drop this down to our piece. And then we're going to just ignore all of this stuff here and just come back through this 8-0 seed bead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to avoid that 15-0 under that cube, go through this 8-0, put my thumb and my finger over the 8-0, and just hold on to it and slide my thread through. As I do this, the cubes will bend over, and it's going to be kind of sloppy, and we'll just arrange it. So the cubes will bend over, you'll have two 15-0s on top, your two little 15-0s on the bottom should be lined up, and then you're going to pick up two 11-0 seed beads onto your needle. So once you've got your two 11-0 seed beads, you're going to go into the opposite side of the bead we started in. So we started here to do this entire unit. Now we're going to come back through the opposite side. So we're going to go into this bead right here, and you're going to have to go at an angle between the cubes and just pull your thread through. Pull it through slowly and gently. Everything's going to twist and do weird stuff, and that's okay, because we'll just straighten it out. When you lay it down, this is what it should look like. Everything should be tight and together, and we're going to sew through it a couple of times and reinforce it. So what we need to do, so I'm going to pick this up and lay it over my finger like this. My little tail is still right there. I'll have to use my thread trimmer. Just ignore your little tail piece. And now you're coming out of this 11-0. We're going to sew up into these two 11-0s right here. And you might make your piece kind of messed up when you do this. That's okay. So go up the two 11-0s and the 8-0. I'm putting my thumb and my finger over it to secure it, hold it in place, and pull my thread through and give it a tug. And then I can continue sewing through. I'm coming out of the 8-0. I'll go up into this little tiny 15-0 right here, up into my cube, and pull my needle through. And then give a nice little tug, go through the two 15-0s right here. Pull through, give it a tug, and then go through the crystal. And you're going to go through the 11-0 the 15-0 underneath the crystal also. Then we're going to go into this 8-0 seed bead and the two 11-0s on this side. So we're just sewing in a circle around all the beads we put on. There we go, just like that. Sometimes you have to fish around a little bit because they'll get in each other's way, but you'll get it, and then just pull the thread through. Now we're going to go through this 11-0 again here, just through the 11-0, go at an angle, tug everything, make everything nice and neat and firm, and then sew back through this entire thing again, just like I just showed you. Okay, so I've just sewn all the way back around my entire little clasping thing here, and now I'm coming out of these two 11-0s. I'm going to go into this 11-0 in between the cubes again, and into the cube behind it. And just the cubes. Try to avoid the 11-0s on the other side here. Just push them out of your way and come through just the cube. And pull your needle through without stabbing yourself. There we go. Now, we are going to put a little embellishment in the middle with our big rondelles. So we're going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, and then the 8x6 rondelle, and an 11-0 seed bead, just like this. And then I am going to come into the crystal on this side. So I'm coming out of this crystal, I'm going to go straight across and go into this one on this side. So I'm going to pick this up, and I'm going to go into this crystal. Now you're going to have to move your little 11 O's around. They do move around easily. And when you come through this side, you're just going to have to fish around until you can get through, because it's a little tighter on this side. Just like that. Just fish around a little bit, go towards the top of the cube, and push out. And I'm just pulling my thread through and guiding my beads into the middle of the diamond shape I've made. And they twist and they do stupid things, and you just have to make them behave because they don't want to. Now, you want to push your little bead down in there and make sure your 11 O's kind of go down in between the beads also. Just like this. Now, we are coming out of this cube here. We're going to pick up an 11 O seed bead, and we're going to place it right over the top of this 11 O and sew back around. So just pick up this 11 O, go into this cube here, and we're just going to pop this right on top of that other one. Make sure it kind of pops down in there. You have to tug on your thread a little bit and push it in. It's going to stay on top for a little bit here until we finish this. So now what we need to do is we need to sew back up through this crystal. So we're coming out of this cube here. We're going to go into the 11 O here, the crystal, and the 11 O here. Pull. And as you do, that'll tighten up that 11 O there. And then go into the crystal on this side. So we sewed through this side last time, we're going to sew through this side. So just move the 11 O's aside, go towards the top of your crystal, this cube crystal, and push your needle through. You can kind of aim where you're going inside the beads there. Now you're coming out here. We're going to pick up an 11 O seed bead and we're going to place it on top of this 11 O here. So just pick up an 11 O, go into your next cube, avoid the 11 O behind it, and pull that 11 O down between the beads. Guide it where it's going, push it down with your thumb, and give a little tug. Now don't pull really hard on your thread or you'll break it on the edge of the crystals. So just pull it enough to where you can get it in there nice and neat, and it sets on top of that other 11 O. And then pick up another 11 O and go over this 11 O. And this is going to hide the threads. It's going to give more strength to the unit, more form, and it's going to hide the threads that we put in while we were putting in our embellishment. So pick up an 11 O, go into the next cube, and pull that 11 O down over the top of the 11 O there, and just kind of adjust your thread. Now we're coming around this side where we already have an 11 O, so we're going to sew through that 11 O. Sew through it, and then we're just going to go through the crystal. And pull. Now you can see that's kind of pulling my 11 O here down into place even better. So don't worry about it too much. If they're looking kind of funny, we'll fix them. Then pick up an 11 O and we're going to place it over the top of this 11 O. So just go through the cube and place this 11 O right on top. And give a tug. Now we're going to sew back around one more time, just tightening up these 11 O's. This is our first unit and everything's kind of wonky, so we're going to make it better. So we're coming out of this cube here, we're going to go into the 11 O here. I give it a little tug every time I come out of a bead, and then I'm going to go through the cube. Now, when you're going through, aim for in between these two 11 O's, so you'll come out just fine. go at an angle up and go in between this 11-0 on top and this 11-0 on the bottom between the crystals here. And you'll come right through. Go into the 11-0 here. And then into the crystal. And we're just going to continue doing that all the way around, giving little tugs. I'm going to go into the 11-0 here, and then down into the crystal. And I'm just working my way down to this end opposite of the 2 cubes we put on. That way we can get prepared to do our next unit. Now, I'm seeing as I'm doing this that these 3 11-0s are kind of loose looking. So instead of sewing through this one on top, I'm going to sew through them as I come around. So you can do it either way, but that's up to you. But if you see something loose, you're right there, and you can do it without crossing your thread path and making a mess with your thread. You can always reinforce anything you want to and make it neater and tighter. So I'm going to go through these 3. If you don't need to do that, then you could just go through your 11-0 on top there, as we've been doing. I'm just going to come out of these beads, pull my thread, pull everything tight, make sure everything looks nice and neat, and then I'm going to go into this 11-0 here. So I'm coming out of my cube, I'm going to go into this 11-0 and this 11-0 here. And now I'm going to prepare for my next unit, and then I'm just going to set this aside with my long thread intact, and we will make some more units for the rest of the bracelet. But what I'm going to do to prepare for this is I'm going to pick up an 8-0 seed bead, and an 11-0 seed bead, and an 8-0 seed bead, just like this. And I'm going to do a little unit of right angle weave right out of this 11-0 seed bead here. So I'm just going to go into the opposite side from which I'm coming out. So I'm coming out here, I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to pull my thread through. And this just brings these up into a little circle like this. Now I'm going to sew back through them because, as you can see, they're loose and wobbly, and we don't want that. We want them nice and tight. So we're going to go into this 8-0, and we're going to sew 1 bead at a time all the way back around. Then I'll go into this 11-0 here. If you put your thumb and your finger over it, you can guide your tension really well. And then into this 8-0. And then back into the 11-0 I started in. Now I've reinforced this entire unit, but I need to get down to the tip here so that I can prepare for my next unit that I'm going to put on. So I'll just go into this 8-0 here, give a little tug, straighten things back up, and then I'll go into this 11-0 here, and then I'm just going to set this aside. And what we're going to do is take our needle off, and we're going to put on another length of thread. So I'm going to use just a single arm's length. So I'm going to measure from my shoulder to my fingertips of one arm, and that should be more than enough thread to make our next unit. So go ahead and get another piece of thread and put it on your needle, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I have rethreaded my needle onto a shorter piece of thread, and now we're going to start our next unit. We're going to pick up a cube, and then we're going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead, a cube, an 11-0, a cube, an 11-0, a cube, and an 11-0. So 4 cubes, 4 11-0s. Alternate the cubes and the 11-0s. Start with the cube, end with an 11-0, just like this. And then bring this to the end of your thread. You don't have to leave a long tail, but you will want to leave enough to tie a knot with. Then I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to go through the very first cube I put on that is on my tail side here, and I'm going to go through that tail side with my needle and pull my thread through. And I'm going to pull it into a square like this. Then I'm going to sew back around the entire square. Go into the 11-0, the crystal, and the 11-0, and just continue all the way around, making sure you don't skip any of your 11-0s, and make sure you don't pull your tail through because it's loose at this point. And then go into the rest of the beads here. They're going to get all weird. It's alright, we're not worried about that right at this point. Now I'm going to go into my last 11-0 right here. And I have my tail coming out of the crystal and my working thread coming out of the 11-0 right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tail thread and the working thread, and I'm going to tie an overhand knot. I'm going to pull it down very tightly between those two beads. Make sure as you tie your knots that the thread goes between the beads and not on top of them. So down between and pull it very tightly so that everything is very tight and the knot that you tied will not blob up inside of your beads. Now we're coming out between the crystal and the 11-0. We're going to go into the 11-0 we're closest to and the next crystal and exit. Now I'm going to cut this tail down just to get it out of my way. I'm going to cut it very close, and then we're going to continue. So now we need to pick up 3 11-0 seed beads. We're coming out of a cube. We're going to pick up 3 11-0s. We're going to skip over the top of an 11-0. First, let me say something really quick. These beads have a finish on them on one side that's different than the other sides. Now, if you want to show some of that finish at this point, I like to have like 2 of them turned or 1 of them turned or whatever, however you want. Make sure that you do it at this point, because otherwise you're going to have all one color on one side or all one color on the other, and you kind of want the accent of it to be on the top of your piece here. So turn them around and have the finish the way that you want it, and then pick up your 3 11-0s, travel from cube to cube, skipping over the top of the 11-0 in between them. Try to hold your beads secure so that they don't turn again, so that your color scheming stays intact, and then once you get a couple in, you won't have to worry about that anymore. Pick up 3 more 11-0 seed beads, and then go from cube over the 11-0 into the next cube. Just like that. Go towards the top of your bead as you're going through so you can pull your needle through a little bit easier. Navigate around the 11-0 on the other side a little bit better. And then again, I'll get you just a tiny bit closer and see if I can stay in frame. Pick up 3 11-0 seed beads and then go into the next cube. Pull, make sure everything's nice and tight, and do that one more time. Pick up 3 11-0 seed beads and go into the next cube. And just come up over the top of the beads on the other side. Make sure that your beads haven't turned. And now we're just going to sew all the way around all of these beads we just put on and into the cubes to secure this and make it a lot more firm and sturdy. So we're coming out of the cube. We're just going to go through all 3 of these 11-0 seed beads here. So just grab out towards the outside, go through 2 of them, grab the next one, go through your cube, and if you aim right between these 2 beads here, you can always come right through the cube pretty easily. And then again, go into the 11 O's. And just sew all the way around. This will also pull everything into shape, make it look better, because sometimes it gets a little out of shape. I'm going to go through this one, and then when we get here, we're going to put in our crystal. So basically, all we've done is just sew all the way around the entire unit into the 311 O's we just put on. Now I'm going to exit right on top of those 311 O's out of this cube here. I'm going to just kind of arrange everything, and then I'm going to pick up an 11O seed bead and one of my big Rondell crystals and an 11O seed bead. Just like this. Now we're coming out of this crystal, we're going to go into the crystal right opposite of it, and we're going to go into the same side that we're coming out of this crystal. So we're just going to go into here, go straight up through, and this time we're going to sew through twice, and then we'll do the other side, and then we'll add our 11O seed beads. So we pulled that crystal down. Make sure those 11 O's are towards the inside of the cubes, and make sure that your crystal is pushed down in between those cubes also. And then go into the 11 O between the cubes here, and then into the next cube. So once you get in that 11 O, just slide through the cube. It's a lot easier than trying to do them separately. Pull your thread through, and then again you're going to go through this crystal and 11 O. So you're coming out of this cube, you're going to go through the 11 O, the crystal, the 11 O. So we're going to secure it twice on this side. Back into the crystal, into this 11 O and the cube. Exit on top of the 11 O's on this side. Now you're going to go through this 11 O and this cube. We're going to sew all the way down to the bottom so that we can sew through the crystal on this side. So all we did was go through this side twice. Now we're going to anchor this side twice. That way your crystal has a nice firm foundation and it's not going to cut through your thread and do weird things. Now I'm going to go through this 11 O and sew all the way up to where I can get to the crystal again. So now I'm coming out of this bead right here. I have to sew through the crystal around the cubes again. So just into this 11 O, crystal 11 O, because it's anchored only on this half at this point. Now we're going to anchor it on this half. Now we're going to go up through this crystal. We're going to go through this 11 O and the crystal behind it, and then through the crystal again. 11 O crystal again. Okay, now that seems like an awful lot of sewing, but believe me, it's important. Now I've come out of my crystal and my 11 O, I'm going into my cube again, and now I'm going to place an 11 O seed bead on top of each one of these 11 O's that are directly between the cubes. The reason we do that is to give it a firmer shape and also to hide the embellishment threads that we just put in. So we're going to pick up an 11 O seed bead. We're going to go from this crystal to this crystal. And we're going to pop that 11 O right on top of the 11 O between the crystals. Just like that. And then we're going to pick up another 11 O. And do the same thing. Go through just the cubes and put that 11 O on top of the existing 11-0. Now it's going to sit suspended on top of there. It's not going to pop way down deep. You want it kind of up a little, so don't freak out if it's not going way down, but you don't want it loose, so make sure it's tight. Now we're going from this cube to this cube, and sometimes you have to arrange them like that. Just give it a couple tugs, push it where you want it, and then put your last one on. Now we can sew through this 11-0 and then sew all the way around one more time. So what we're going to do first is we're coming out of this 11-0, we're going to go through this cube here, we're going to tie a knot right between this 11-0 and this cube. So there's a thread bridge right between these two. We're going to go right under that, right there, and then we're just going to make a loop and tie a knot. Now I'm going to go through this 11-0 here, and then into the next crystal, and then through this 11-0 and into the next crystal. You're going to have to do them one at a time. It's kind of hard because these are suspended up. You can't really get into the crystal and the cube at the same time very well. So I'll go through this 11-0, I'll come back through the next cube, and this is what I mean by you need really small thread because we're going through it a lot. But this is making everything very firm and it's going to keep the shape really well. Now, as we come through our last cube here, we're going to push out towards the back, pull the thread through, and cut it off. And now you have your first unit. So, well, your second unit. You have this unit that you made with the end, and you have this unit. You will want to make 3 more units. So in total we'll have 5 units, the one with this on it and then 4 more. And that will make right at a 7-inch bracelet. So let me show you on my other one and we'll discuss how you can modify your length. So here's my ruler. It reflects my lights really weird. I hope you can read it. But I'm putting the end of this right about half through my loop, just a little bit, and then towards the middle or towards the end of my little loop here, because the loop is going to go over these, so they're not going to give you a whole lot of length. So right at that, I'm at 7 inches. So what I'm saying is it looks like it's 7.5, but your loop is going to be underneath these, so they're not a lot of your length. So if you want to have a longer bracelet, then you're going to make 1 more component. If you want a shorter bracelet, you can make 1 less component, or we can modify in between them too. You can make your units a little bit shorter or a little bit longer in between, or at the very end here, you can also make this, or on this end, you can make this unit longer, and I'll show you how to do that. But if you want right around a 7-inch bracelet, go ahead and make 3 more units. A 7-inch bracelet is medium size, fits most everybody. Some it's a little looser and some it's a little tighter. If you want a large bracelet, you make 8 inches. If you want a short bracelet, you make 6 inches. And like I said, we can discuss modifying that a little bit more as we finish. Go ahead and make the rest of your components. You want 5 altogether, including the one with the clasping end that we made first. Okay, so as you can see, I have made all 5 of my units. Now, what I've done is I've lined them all up on my bead mat, making sure that the Rondelle bead, where the thread runs through it vertically, is vertical. So you want to make sure that your bead isn't turned this way. So you can see your 2 11-0s or sideways. You want them to be this way. That way they'll all be exactly the same. So just kind of line them up so that you can pick them up one at a time and put them on properly. And now we're coming out of this 8/0 seed bead right here. This is how we left our first unit. I put my needle back on the long thread I left, and I'm coming out of this 11/0 seed bead right here after making the unit of 8/0s and 11/0s. Now, what we need to do is we need to make another unit of right angle weave and then one more, which we will connect our next unit into. What we're going to do is we're going to pick up a Rondell crystal, the small one this time. So I told you need 10 of your 4x3. Pick up one of those, and then an 11/0 seed bead, and then another small crystal, like this. And then we're going to go into the opposite side of the bead we're coming out of right here. Let me get you just a tiny bit closer. So I'm going into this one. I'm putting my thumb and my finger together, holding on to it, pulling these beads around, and they should come right around into a circle, and it'll be kind of messed up. So you kind of have to adjust it so that they go like this. Now there is a tiny bit of thread that will show here. If you do not like that, you can add a little 15/0 on either side of the crystals. But I just find that it makes it kind of bulky, so I'm not going to do that. And with the naked eye, you're not going to see it that much. You will see it under my camera simply because my camera has very high magnification. So I've pulled these all the way around like this, and now I'm going to sew through them again, just to make sure that they're nice and tight. So I'm coming out of the connecting 11/0, going into the crystal. And I'm going to give a little tug as I go through. Everything on this piece needs to have very tight tension, otherwise it's going to be really messy. And then I went through the 11/0 into the next rondelle, down into the 11/0 here, and now I'm secure. I need to sew through this bead and this bead to get back to where I can make my next unit. So now I'm going to go through this Rondell crystal, and then I'm going to go through this 11/0 seed bead right here. Now I'm going to make a unit. Make sure you have your next component ready. I'm going to make a unit like this one with the 8/0s and connect this 11/0 instead of picking up an 11/0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up an 8/0 seed bead. I'm going to drop it down on my needle, and then I'm going to pick up my component. And I'm going to go through this 11/0 seed bead right here on my component. Let me back off just a tiny bit. And then I'm just going to pull my thread through. And my 8/0 and the 11/0 on the unit should drag towards the unit you already have created, just like that. And then we're going to pick up an 8/0 seed bead, drop it down, and then go through the 11/0 on this unit between the rondelles. Let's get close, right there, and go up through this unit. Now I'm going to pick up this side, just so I can hold on to it, and I'm just going to gently drag that 8/0 down, pull this together, and this is what you should have, just like that. And we're going to sew through this again. So I'm going to pick up this entire thing, and I'm just going to sew. Coming out of this 11/0, I'm going to go into this 8/0, pull my thread through, go into this 11/0 right here on the unit again, on our new unit. Again, make sure before you do this that you have the right side of your component facing up. The little 11/0 seed beads we put in should be on the top. And then I'm just going to continue sewing through. So I'm going into this 8/0 here, and then into the 8/0 connected here, or 11/0, excuse me. Now I have completely secured it. I need to sew all the way back down so that I can sew through this component and come out this end. So I'm coming out of this 11-0 seed bead here. So I need to go into the 8-0 closest to where I'm coming out. I'll go in here. Then I'll go into this 11-0 seed bead right here that I've been going through, the one that we're connected to. Now we're going to sew through this 11-0, this cube, and make our way down here. So we're going to go through this 11-0 right here. I'm going to go through the cube, and I'm going to exit. And sometimes it's a little bit difficult, especially if you put your knot there. Just push your needle up towards the top of your bead, push it through. Make sure you're using a very small needle like a size 12. And then I'm going to sew through these 3 beads on top. Or you can just travel through this one here too. It's actually easier. This is the one that's up. You can go through it. And then into this crystal here. I'll just go down through it. And then I need to get up to this bead right on the end of my component here so that I can make my next connection. So I'll go all the way up into this one. Now we're going to make a couple more units of right angle weave again. So that's what that looks like. I'm going to pick up an 8-0, an 11-0, and an 8-0. And I'm going to go into the opposite side of the bead I'm coming out of, right here. Pull these down, and then sew back through them to secure them. So I'm just going to turn it so I can sew back through it, and I'll sew through one at a time to retain the shape that I want. I'll sew through this one. I'm going to put my thumb and finger over it to hold it in place. Then I'm going to sew through this one, and then back into this 11-0 seed bead right here that we've connected to. Now I'm completely secure. I have to sew through this bead and this bead so that I can make my next unit. So I'm just going to turn my piece, go down into this 8-0 right here, and then right through this one here, and I'm going to put on my little rondelles. So I'm going to pick up a rondelle, an 11-0 seed bead, and a rondelle. And I'm going to go into the opposite side of the bead I'm coming out of. I'm going to put my thumb and finger together and just kind of drag those in. And then I'm going to reinforce. So I'll go up through the crystal, holding on to it, give a tug so that it's nice and tight and it makes a really nice shape there. And then up through this 11-0 into this crystal and down into this 11-0 right here. Now we're going to sew back up through this crystal and this bead so that we are in position to get our next one connected. So now we're going to get our next unit. Make sure the little 11-0 beads are to the top. Make sure that your Rondell crystal is vertical like this. The whole of it is situated vertically. And then pick up an 8-0 seed bead and then go through the 11-0 on the outside of the unit here, right there. And pull that down. Line it up with your piece and pick up another 8-0. And then go back through the 11-0 you started in, right here between the rondelles. I'm going to pick this up so that I can guide my thread and my piece together nice and gently, just like this. Now I can sew back through that entire unit and secure it. So I'm coming out of this 11-0, I go up into this 8-0. I'm going to put my thumb and finger together and give it a tug, go through this 11-0 here on the unit that I just connected. And make sure that your thread doesn't get caught on anything. Go through the 8/0 here, just like that, up through the 11/0, and then I need to sew back down and around and through my unit. So I'll go into this 8/0, that 11/0 is a little loose. If you need to, you can sew back through even at this point to tighten things up if you need to. I'm going to go into this bead here, into this one here, and the cube, go into this 11/0 on top, and the cube if I can at the same time. It looks like I might be able to. There we go. And then again, I will sew into these 3 coming out on the middle one right there. So right here and into here, and begin the process again. Back up the video if you need to and watch how we connected this one, and continue until you get to your last unit, and we'll be back. So I have attached all of my units now. Now here is where you can adjust your length if you would like. How I'm going to do it is just add another of this unit, these 2 units, just like I have been, and then put my hoop through. But I will also show you how to add a little bit more. If you just need a little bit more length, you can do it that way. Or of course you could have made another unit. If you need less, you could make a 1 unit short and then make a double unit of the right angle weave here, and just extend it to make it just a little bit longer if it's just a little too short after having subtracted a unit. There's lots of ways to do it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to make this right angle weave unit and this right angle weave unit just like I have been after I add my unit. So now I'm going to pick up an 8/0, an 11/0, and an 8/0, and go into the opposite side of the 11/0 I'm coming out of, as I've been doing all along, preparing to make the extension between my units. But this time it's going to be the end of my bracelet. So now I will sew through and reinforce this unit, and then sew back up to the top, and then I will pick up my rondelle, my 11/0, and my rondelle, and reinforce them. Now I have reinforced. I'm going to sew up to the 11/0 between the rondelles, and that's where I'll put my loop for my clasping. However, if, like I said, you need just a little bit more length, you could go ahead and pick up an 8/0, 11/0, 8/0 again, like this, 8/0, 11/0, 8/0, and make one more unit of right angle weave on this side. Then you would go ahead and reinforce it and make your loop out of this bead here. That will give you even a little bit more length. And of course you could even do another unit of rondelles if you want to after that one, if you need even more length. But if you need that much length, you should have just put another unit. Would probably be the easiest way. And I'm going to take this off. Now I have reinforced this. You can sew through it, reinforce it one more time, but since we're going to put our loop on and then we have to reinforce around that anyway, I'm just going to do it that way. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick up 27 11-0 seed beads onto my needle and make my loop like this. 27 Tohos work really well around the unit we made on the other side to clasp. If you're using Miyuki or something other than Toho, check something like that, then you may have to make a loop and hold your thread, run through it, hold your thread and test it to see if it's going to go over. I know because I've already made one. So if you're using Toho, pick up 27 11-0 seed beads and we'll be right back. So I have picked up my 27 15-0 seed beads. And I'm going to show you, we're going to go back through this bead here. And before we secure it, I will show you. This is how you will test. If you are using a different seed bead, just run it through and then wrap it around one of your fingers really tight so that it doesn't open up as you test your other end. Hold on to it to where it's tight, and then you can bring your other end around and see if it'll go over it really well. So that's how you will test it if you don't know how many seed beads to use. Let me back off just a little. Now, so what I've done is I picked up my 27, I went back through the opposite side of the 11-0 we were coming out of, and now I'm just going to reinforce this by sewing all the way back around all of these beads. So I'll sew through all of the 15-0 seed beads. Make sure you don't miss any. Don't pull them really tight because they'll bunch, but don't have any slack either because then they'll be sloppy. As you're going through, of course, it's going to loosen up, but as you pull your thread, you can tighten it back down. Just don't tighten it down too much. So I'm going all the way around. Got one more to go through right here, and then I will go through the 11-0 that I'm attaching to. So right here I'll go back through this 11-0 right here, and now I'm going to sew around this entire unit here to get myself back around so I can go through that loop one more time, and it will also reinforce these. So I'm going into the crystal, because you want your end to be very strong. It's going to get tugged on here for the clasping, so we're going to reinforce through these crystals again. Up into the 11-0. And then I'm going to sew all the way around all of these beads again. When I get done, I will come back and show you how to tie this thing off. Okay, so I have gone all the way around my loop again, reinforcing it. I'm coming out of the 11-0 seed bead that I attached it to. I'm going to go down into this crystal here. And then I am going to go into the 11-0 seed bead here. And then I'm going to reinforce this unit again. So I'm going to go all the way around this entire unit. Actually, that feels pretty secure. So I'm just going halfway through that unit. And then I'm going to go under this thread bridge right here between the beads. Oops, a little blurry, sorry. Clear up, clear up, clear up. There it goes. Okay, so right between these two beads, there's a little thread bridge. I'm taking my needle right underneath it. I'm going to make a loop. I'm going to go through it, and then I'm going to go through this 11-0, this crystal, and through the cube. And you can just cut that off there, or you can go all the way around a little bit more to make sure that it's really reinforced. I'm just going to actually, I'm going to go through one more so I can bring it through the back and cut it off. So I'm going to go through this 11-0 and this crystal and go through the back of the crystal. And then I'll just cut this like that. And I have a bracelet, as you can see. And I'm going to put it on and show you what it looks like. And here it is. And here's the clasping. Get you really close. Make sure when you poke your cubes through that you make sure that your 15-0 seed beads go down underneath those cubes. It's like that. And then once it's on, it's on. It's pretty good. It's not going to go anywhere. Now, I suppose it's possible that it could come off if you mess with it too much. But, or if it's really loose, I made mine to where it fits right. Again, it's not snug, but it's not loose either. So I suppose you could have an issue with it. But I haven't. I wore my other one for quite a while, and I didn't have any issues with it. Otherwise, you can put a toggle clasp on, of course, or a lobster claw or any kind of clasp you would like. And you don't have to do it this way if you don't like it. But so far, I haven't had a lot of issues. Seems to stay there okay. Anyway, that's what that looks like. Let me take it off, if I can. And there you have it. So here are both of the bracelets I made, and I think they turned out really pretty. I really, really like this combination of colors and sparkle. It really turned out nice. Now, if you want to make these and you don't want to buy the box, I do have these beads that you will need for this project on my website. It's called ggctreasures.com. So if you just want to have the bracelets, make them separately, that's no problem. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this one. See you in the next one.